Hello everyone, and welcome to the Facebook Live event here at the Houston Zoo. My name is Ben, I'm one of the bird keepers here, and behind me is our resident flock of flamingos. Now today is International Flamingo Day, so we are celebrating by checking in on our flock of flamingos in their new temporary habitat. You may notice that this is a different area than where they're usually found. We moved our flamingo flock into this exhibit about 2 months ago because their previous habitat is getting renovated and rebuilt as part of our upcoming state-of-the-art Birds of the World exhibit. So they're going to be getting a brand new habitat. It'll be enclosed and it'll be a walk-through aviary. So stay tuned for more information about the Birds of the World exhibit. Here in this exhibit, you can find them at the Wortham World of Primates loop right across from the orangutans. This is where they'll be in the meantime. We have 54 flamingos in here, 26 males, 28 females, including our newest chicks. You may notice that 3 of them are gray instead of pink. 2 of them, the numbers 211 and 212, are our parent-reared chicks from last season, and the remaining one is our hand-reared chick. The hand-reared chick is named Domingo. He's about 7 months old now. The other 2 are Astro and Orbit. They're a couple weeks younger. But you'll notice that they're still gray. They will stay gray until they're roughly 2.5 to 3 years of age. They'll finally get all of their pink colors. For now, they just have a little bit of pink on the wings and on the back, but they are basically adult size. Flamingos are very precocial. They grow up very quickly, so they reach adult size in roughly 3 or 4 months. They're also pretty self-sufficient after about 70 days. So once they hatch, the parents will feed them for the first 65 to 70 days. After that, they're big enough that they can kind of get by on their own. They'll still follow their parents around, but they can feed themselves and move about on their own after that 70-day point. Now, Domingo we hand-reared because we are hoping that he can be an encounter bird that people will be able to meet and hopefully feed from a cup. So we've been doing a lot of training with him, working to get him calm around people and used to meeting a large variety of different people. He's doing very well in his training. He is a lot more outgoing than most of the other flamingos, and we're hoping that the rest of the flock, seeing him getting fed, will entice them to be a little more outgoing and potentially be part of the flamingo encounter experience as well. So these guys are actually going into breeding season now. Breeding season for them is late spring into the summer. It is fairly variable. There's a wide range of when they'll breed and when they'll build nests. In the wild, it's pretty much as long as there is food available, and once the rainy season starts and the areas that they hang out in get a little more flooded, that will cue them to start breeding. Pairs will build nest mounds out of mud and dirt, elevated mounds so that their eggs can stay protected and out of the water. They'll lay 1 egg at a time. If something happens to that egg, they will usually lay a second one as a replacement, but generally only 1 egg and 1 chick at a time. Once the egg hatches, the parents will feed the chick for the first 65 to 70 days, and what they're feeding them is a substance called crop milk. It is food that they store in a muscular organ called the crop, and they will drip feed that to their chicks. So you can actually tell among our flock which ones the parents are, because the parents are a little less pink than the rest of the flamingos. They produce that pink coloration from the energy from the food that they eat. So the parents, giving a lot of that energy to their growing chicks, won't be quite as pink as the rest of the flock. But then by the next year, assuming that they aren't parents again, they will get a nice pink color as well. The chicks will eventually get that pink color once they're about 3 years of age. Now, in the wild, they're going to be eating a lot of small particulate matter that they filter feed. So they'll eat little bits of algae, they'll eat diatoms and other very small organisms like krill. They'll eat crustaceans and mollusks. And the energy from the carotenoids in that food is what allows them to get their pink coloration. Here at the zoo, we feed them krill as a special treat on occasion, and the majority of their diet is flamingo pellets, which are specially designed for flamingos. They have a lot of the proteins and nutrients that they would be getting from the food that they eat in the wild, and that allows them to get that nice pink coloration. You may notice that a lot of these flamingos are kind of picking at their feathers and putting their feathers in place. That is a behavior called preening. Preening is very important to birds. It helps keep their feathers in good condition. With semi-aquatic birds like flamingos, it helps to keep them waterproof so that they're not going to get too wet and cold as they wade about in the pools. So they'll spend about 15 to 30% of their day every day preening those feathers and making sure that they're looking as good as they possibly can. That'll help keep them nice and warm and dry as they're moving about in the water. They are very good swimmers. You can see they have those nice big webbed feet that help them move about in the water. They're also very powerful flyers, but for the most part, they get around by walking. They don't typically tend to swim very much unless they find themselves in very deep water. Most of their day is spent standing or walking around. Groups of flamingos are called stands or sometimes flamboyances. We have 54 in our group. In the wild, these groups can number anywhere from a few individuals up to tens of thousands of individuals. Waylon asks, how big do they get? That's a great question. So they typically get 4 to 5 feet tall. The males are usually a bit bigger than the females, but there is a lot of variation. But 4 to 5 feet is adult size for them. They reach adult size within probably about 4 to 5 months. So they get that size pretty quickly. So these are Chilean flamingos. They're one of 3 species found in South America. These guys are found in central Peru, all the way down south along the Andes to Tierra del Fuego. And they can be found anywhere from coastal areas at sea level all the way up to 14,000 feet of elevation. So they do have a pretty big range in their habitat. And for those of you just tuning in, we are here at the flamingos' new habitat. This is a temporary habitat while we work on renovating and rebuilding their previous habitat. For the time being, they can be found in the Wortham World of Primates loop right across from the orangutans. So they have been making some new friends among the primates, and the orangutans seem very interested to have the new neighbors. We have 54 individuals. We have 26 females and 28 males, so it's split pretty evenly. Among our most recent chicks, 2 are males, 1 is female. Domingo, the hand-raised individual, is one of our males. Orbit is the other male. And then just in front of Domingo is Astro, and she is a female. These guys are what's known as serially monogamous, which means that every breeding season they'll pick a mate and they will stick with that mate for the whole breeding season. But then from year to year, they may go back to the same mate they had the previous breeding season, but they may also find a new mate for the new breeding season. But within a singular season, they are monogamous. Kathy asks, how do you tell male and female flamingos apart? That is another great question. So the females are generally a little bit smaller than the males, but there is a lot of individual variation, so that's not always a guarantee. The only guaranteed way to tell the males and females apart is to take some of their feathers, send them off to a lab, and we will look at the DNA in the feathers to see if it's a male or a female. Otherwise, just looking at them, there's no way to be certain if it's a male or a female. You'll have to get either that feather test or a blood test. Why did they temporarily move? Another good question. So they are moved for the time being while their previous habitat is being renovated and rebuilt. We are just starting work on our brand new state-of-the-art Birds of the World exhibit. This is going to be 3 walk-through aviaries, each one focusing on a different part of the world, North America, South America, and Africa. Our flamingos are going to be getting a brand new state-of-the-art home within the Birds of the World exhibit. They'll be in the South America aviary. So while that is under construction, they are living here in the Wortham World of Primates loop right across from the orangutans. Once that new habitat is complete, they'll be moving in there. It'll be a walk-through aviary where you guys will be able to get nice up-close views of them once again. Now, you may notice as they are going about, they kind of pick at the dirt as they go sometimes. This behavior is because they are filter feeders. When they eat, they will stand in foot to ankle deep water, stretch their head all the way down, and hold their beaks upside down as they filter feed through the water. They have bristle-like structures on their tongue and along their beak, very similar to other filter feeders like baleen whales, and that allows them to grab big mouthfuls of the water, force all the water out, but keep the small particulate food matter that they eat, all the krill and crustaceans and algae, in their beak to filter it out as they eat. They'll spend a good portion of the day filter feeding, and even when they're not in the water, sometimes they will kind of go along and pick at stuff on the ground. What do I love most about working with flamingos? That's a very good question. There's a lot to love about the flamingos. I think just seeing the group dynamics is my favorite aspect of working with the flamingos. As I've said, they are very gregarious birds, so they spend a lot of time in groups. This helps keep them safe from predators, being in a very large group. It's also what spurs them to start the breeding season. They need to be in a large enough group for them to want to start building nests and breeding. But because they're always in such a large group, there's a lot of interesting social dynamics. You'll see some are a little more confident than others, and all their different personalities start to come through as they interact with each other. So that's probably my favorite part of working with them, is just seeing them all interacting and the things that they do. Alice asks, are the ones laying down nesting? No, so the ones that are laying down are just resting at the moment. They're taking a little nap. These guys are prey species, so they don't tend to sleep for very long periods at once. They'll usually take smaller cat naps so that they're not asleep for too long when a predator might sneak up on them. So they're just resting. They like to tuck their legs in and also tuck their head in. It helps keep them warmer if it's a little chilly. It's also a little more comfortable for them to rest like that. So right now they're just resting. There was one earlier that was sort of digging in the dirt and shifting dirt around with its beak. That may have been nesting behavior. That is what they'll do when they start getting ready to nest, is they will build those mounds out of dirt and mud. Both the male and the female will work on the nests together, and they'll create these large mounds to lay their eggs in, so that if water levels rise with a lot of heavy rain, their egg is still going to be up off the ground where it's nice and dry and safe. Now, a lot of people may look at them as they're standing or moving about and notice that it looks like their knees bend backwards. And that is because those joints are actually their ankles and not their knees. Their knee joints are much higher up on their body, sort of hidden within the feathers. They have very long feet. That is what allows them to wade through deep water. So it's easiest to think of it like they're constantly standing on tiptoe, and those ankles are what are midway up the leg. So Amelia asks, what is their biggest predator in the wild? So these guys are from South America. Pretty much any of the larger predators down there might go for them. Cats, snakes, things like that. They are more vulnerable when they're chicks, naturally, because they're a lot smaller. But they do have a decent amount of predators as adults. Now you may notice that they have those very long, flexible necks. They can stretch those necks up really high if they want to, but when they're relaxed, they usually fold their necks into more of an S shape. Now those long necks help them with a wide variety of things. They don't have any hands like we do, so all of the things that we do with our hands, they have to do with their beaks. So they have those long, flexible necks so that they can reach their back, their bellies, their wings, anything that they need to be able to reach, they can pretty much reach with their beak. It also allows them to stretch down while they're filter feeding and eat even when they're in very shallow water. And lastly, it helps because they can sometimes be found in groups of tens of thousands of individuals. When you got 10,000 of your buddies all around you and you're all roughly the same height, if you want to see what's going on a little ways away, you need to be able to stretch your neck up a little higher than everyone else to see over them. So when they're calm and relaxed, they'll usually fold their neck down a little, and if they get curious or interested about something, they'll stretch their necks way up. You can see some of the guys in the back of the flock are kind of interested in what we're doing over here right now, so they're stretching their necks up to sort of see you guys and see what's going on. So thank you everyone for tuning in to help us celebrate International Flamingo Day. Tune in next Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook Live.